Have you ever noticed how the loudest critic in your life lives right inside your own mind? From the moment you wake up, it's there, that relentless, nagging voice replaying your past mistakes and predicting future disasters before you've even brushed your teeth. By the time you're sipping coffee, it may have already decided the kind of day you'll have. This voice is more than just persistent. It's downright exhausting. It thrives in quiet moments, filling them with judgment, fear, and endless chatter. But what if you realize that this voice isn't truly you? It's a conditioned response, a collection of learned behaviors and thoughts formed by years of self-judgment and criticism. By recognizing it for what it is, you can begin to step into a life of clarity, peace, and freedom, moving away from the tyranny of self-doubt and mental clutter. This voice is like a radio stuck between stations, constantly broadcasting unhelpful narratives about who you are. It judges your actions, labels your experiences, and builds an image of yourself that you begin to accept as truth. It tells you, "I'm not good enough," or "I always mess up," and without questioning, you believe it. But what if you pause to consider that this voice is more like a program running on outdated scripts from your past? Many of these scripts were formed from childhood experiences, remarks from others, or societal pressures, none of which define your true self. This voice predicts disasters that rarely come true and creates unnecessary stress and worry. It's a thief of the present moment, dragging you into regrets of the past or anxieties about the future. Yet, the present, the only place where life actually happens, slips away unnoticed. The energy we waste on this mental noise is immense. It's like leaving every app on your phone running in the background, draining the battery and slowing everything down. But there is a way to break free. Instead of fighting the voice or trying to silence it, we can learn to notice it without becoming entangled in its stories. Like hearing traffic noise outside your window, you can observe the chatter without focusing on it. By seeing thoughts as just thoughts, not facts, you create space to step back and regain perspective. When the voice says, "I can't do this," you can respond, "That's an interesting thought," rather than automatically believing it. This small shift weakens the voice's power, revealing it for what it is: recycled content, reruns of old fears and insecurities. By choosing not to follow every whisper of self-doubt, you open the door to clarity, resilience, and a renewed sense of control over your life. The voice in our minds will keep talking. That's its nature. It's like a TV channel playing endless reruns. But when we stop treating it as the ultimate authority, it begins to lose its grip on us. This matters because many of us spend years trying to fix ourselves based on what the voice tells us. It insists, if only you were smarter, more successful, or better looking, you'd finally be okay. Yet no matter how much we change or improve, the voice always finds something else to criticize. The real transformation happens when we stop trying to fix the voice and start questioning whether we need to believe it at all. By choosing to act on our values instead of its constant commentary, we reclaim the freedom to live authentically. You don't need complicated techniques or years of practice to break free from the voice's control. It starts with a simple willingness to notice its presence without following its directions. Imagine having a backseat driver who never stops offering advice. You can acknowledge their presence without letting them dictate your route. Sometimes the advice might even be helpful, but most of the time, it's unnecessary noise. The voice isn't our enemy. It's trying, in its own flawed way, to keep us safe from imagined dangers. Understanding this can help you disengage from its grip. By observing its chatter without judgment, you create room to hear the quieter, wiser parts of yourself. In Christianity, this idea aligns with the practice of discernment, the ability to separate truth from mental noise. The Bible speaks about taking every thought captive to make it obedient to Christ. 2 Corinthians 10 verse 5. This isn't about silencing your mind, but about recognizing thoughts for what they are. Fleeting ideas, not absolute truths. Consider the story in 1 Kings 19 verse 12, where God's voice wasn't in the fire, the earthquake, or the wind, but in a still, small whisper. That whisper contrasts sharply with the loud, chaotic commentary of our minds. By pausing to notice our thoughts and stopping automatic reactions, we create space to hear that deeper, steadier wisdom within us. This practice isn't about fixing every thought or shutting out the noise entirely. It's about releasing the false narratives and anchoring ourselves in the unshakable truth of God's love and grace. The next time you catch that inner voice chattering away, try a new approach. Instead of arguing with it or desperately trying to quiet it down, simply notice it. Pay attention to the stories it's telling you about your life and yourself. Are these stories helping you live the way you want to, or are they holding you back? This act of observing without judgment is powerful. It starts to change your relationship with the voice. You begin to see it as just one part of your experience, not the whole story. In the space between you and the voice lies a freedom to choose how you want to live, rather than reacting on autopilot. Over time, we all develop a false self as a protective layer, often starting in childhood. This false self is like a mask we wear to fit in, avoid conflict, or gain approval from others. For some, it meant being the quiet, obedient one. For others, the life of the party. These patterns served us at one point, helping us navigate challenges or find acceptance. But as adults, this false self often limits us. It whispers that we're not good enough, or that we need to prove our worth by striving for perfection. It drives us to seek validation through external means, buying things we don't need, chasing careers that don't fulfill us, or acting in ways that don't align with who we truly are. Recognizing your false self is the first step in breaking free from its grip. Notice when you feel like you're trying too hard to impress others, or when you're just going through the motions in life. Perhaps it's that persistent need to check social media for likes, compare yourself to others, or seek constant approval. The false self operates on autopilot, recycling old fears and outdated beliefs. It uses up an incredible amount of energy, leaving you drained and disconnected. Think of how exhausting it feels to pretend to be someone you're not, whether at a social event or in daily life. But the good news is that once you start noticing these patterns, you can begin to loosen their hold and rediscover your authentic self. As you begin to notice the false self in action, you'll see how it influences your decisions, big and small. Perhaps you catch yourself agreeing to something you don't want to do just to avoid disappointing someone. Or maybe you realize you're pursuing a goal, not because it's meaningful to you, but because you think it will earn approval. The false self thrives in these moments, convincing you that your worth depends on external validation. But when you observe these behaviors without judgment, you create space to make conscious choices instead of reacting from old patterns. You start to see the ways the false self pushes you to wear masks, play roles, and avoid vulnerability, all in the name of safety and acceptance. Beneath the layers of the false self lies your true self, the authentic, unchanging core of who you are. This part of you doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. It isn't driven by status, appearances, or the need for approval. The true self is quietly confident, grounded, and aligned with your deepest values. Reconnecting with this part of yourself begins with small acts of awareness. Pay attention to the moments when you feel most genuine, most alive. Notice when you're acting out of obligation versus when you're acting out of joy or alignment with your values. The more you recognize these moments, the more you'll strengthen your connection to your true self. The journey of moving beyond the false self isn't about radically overhauling your life overnight. It's about noticing and questioning the small, automatic behaviors that no longer serve you. You might find yourself in a conversation where you realize you're saying what you think the other person wants to hear, rather than what you truly mean. Or you might catch yourself avoiding a difficult but necessary conversation because it feels safer to maintain the status quo. These small moments of awareness are powerful. They allow you to pause, reflect, and choose a new response, one that aligns with your true self. Over time, these choices build momentum, helping you live more authentically and freely. It's a gradual process, but each step brings you closer to a life that feels deeply true to who you are. The false self may try to resist your efforts to step into authenticity. It thrives on familiar patterns, convincing you that letting go of its control is dangerous or impractical. But these are just more stories it uses to maintain power. As you grow more aware of its tactics, you'll start to see how often the false self shapes your daily choices, what you wear, how you speak, the goals you pursue, and the relationships you maintain. This awareness doesn't mean you need to change everything all at once. Instead, it gives you the opportunity to choose consciously which aspects of your personality and behavior genuinely serve you, and which are outdated protective mechanisms. The process of reconnecting with your true self takes time and patience. These patterns have often been in place for years, if not decades. But every small moment of awareness, every choice to act from authenticity rather than fear, strengthens your connection to your core. You'll begin to notice when you're acting out of habit or obligation, and when you're genuinely expressing who you are. The false self may not disappear entirely, but its influence will diminish as you build trust in your ability to navigate life from a place of truth and alignment. One of the most powerful tools in this journey is the ability to observe your mind and emotions without becoming entangled in them. Think of this as cultivating the observer within you, a calm, non-judgmental awareness that notices your thoughts, feelings, and actions as they arise. This observer isn't there to criticize or fix anything. It's simply present to witness. For example, when you feel anxious or insecure, the observer can step back and say, "I notice I'm feeling anxious right now," rather than being consumed by the emotion. This simple act of observation creates space between you and the false self, allowing you to respond consciously rather than react automatically. Over time, this practice becomes a bridge between the noise of the false self and the clarity of your true self, empowering you to live with greater authenticity and freedom. The observer is a powerful ally in breaking free from the grip of the false self. It's the part of you that watches without judgment, seeing your thoughts and emotions as they arise and pass, like clouds moving across the sky. This perspective helps you disentangle from the stories your mind spins and recognize them for what they are: just thoughts, not truths. For example, when the voice in your mind says, "I'm not good enough," the observer allows you to notice the thought rather than accept it as fact. It gives you the freedom to question the validity of that statement and to choose a response aligned with your values instead of your fears. This process isn't about detaching or becoming emotionless. On the contrary, it's about connecting more deeply with your true self. The observer doesn't reject or suppress thoughts and feelings. It acknowledges them with curiosity and compassion. When you're in a stressful situation, the observer might notice your racing thoughts or tightening chest without trying to fix or fight them. It creates a gentle pause where you can breathe, reflect, and choose your next step consciously. This pause is where transformation happens, where you move from reacting based on old patterns to responding with clarity and purpose. Think of your mind as a movie screen, with thoughts, memories, and emotions playing like projections. The observer is the screen itself, unchanging, steady, and unaffected by what appears on it. Whether the movie is joyful, sad, or chaotic, the screen remains constant. By identifying with the observer rather than the projections, you free yourself from being defined by fleeting thoughts or temporary emotions. This perspective reveals the truth. You are not your thoughts, your fears, or your insecurities. You are the awareness behind them, capable of navigating life with clarity, resilience, and authenticity. Through consistent practice, this realization becomes a foundation for living a more peaceful, grounded, and meaningful life. The practice of observing your thoughts and emotions doesn't require special conditions or lengthy preparation. It's something you can do anywhere, anytime. For instance, the next time you're caught in a moment of frustration, instead of reacting impulsively, pause and notice what's happening inside you. What thoughts are running through your mind? How does your body feel? This simple act of noticing creates a gap between the stimulus and your response. In that gap, you have the freedom to choose how you want to act, rather than being swept away by automatic reactions. Over time, this habit of mindful observation strengthens, allowing you to approach life's challenges with greater calm and clarity. One of the remarkable aspects of this practice is its ability to shine a light on the patterns that shape your life. You might start to notice recurring themes in your thoughts: self-doubt, fear of failure, or a need for approval. These patterns often stem from the false self and its outdated narratives. By observing them without judgment, you begin to see them for what they are: old programs that no longer serve you. This awareness is liberating. It gives you the power to interrupt these patterns and choose a different path, one that aligns with your true self and values. The observer also helps you cultivate a greater sense of presence. When you're fully present, you're not caught up in regrets about the past or worries about the future. Instead, you're engaged with the here and now, the only place where life truly happens. Practicing presence can be as simple as focusing on your breath, the sensations in your body, or the sights and sounds around you. This practice anchors you in reality, allowing you to experience life more fully and authentically. It also helps you connect more deeply with others, as your presence creates a space of genuine attention and care. By cultivating the observer, you not only free yourself from the grip of the false self, but also discover the richness and beauty of each moment. Over time, cultivating the observer transforms the way you experience life. As you develop the ability to watch your thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them, you begin to see patterns that once felt overwhelming as manageable and temporary. The observer gives you a way to approach challenges with curiosity rather than fear, allowing you to navigate them with greater resilience. For example, instead of reacting with frustration when something doesn't go as planned, you might notice the frustration arising, acknowledge it, and then choose a thoughtful response. This shift from reactivity to intentionality creates space for growth and a deeper sense of control over your life. The false self often thrives on unconscious habits, but the observer brings those habits into the light of awareness. You might notice that you avoid difficult conversations, not because you can't handle them, but because of a fear of rejection rooted in past experiences. Or perhaps you realize that you're pursuing a goal, not out of genuine desire, but because you feel it's what you're supposed to do. These insights, made possible through observation, allow you to make choices that align with your true self. Each time you act in alignment with your values rather than the false self scripts, you weaken its influence and strengthen your connection to your authentic self. The process of developing the observer and reconnecting with your true self is deeply empowering. It teaches you that you're not at the mercy of your thoughts or emotions, but rather, you have the capacity to engage with them intentionally. Imagine walking through life with a clear understanding that your thoughts are not the ultimate truth, but merely passing clouds in the sky of your mind. This perspective brings a profound sense of freedom. You no longer feel controlled by the false self's fears and insecurities. Instead, you become rooted in the calm, steady awareness of your true self, allowing you to face life's complexities with courage, authenticity, and grace. Over time, as you continue to develop the habit of observing your thoughts and emotions, you'll notice a profound shift in how you relate to yourself and the world. The voice of the false self may still arise, but it will no longer dominate your inner dialogue. Instead of being caught in its stories, you'll see them for what they are: temporary and often repetitive patterns of thought. This distance creates a sense of inner peace, as you realize you don't have to believe or act on every thought that crosses your mind. You're free to choose how you want to respond, guided by your true self rather than conditioned reactions. This shift also opens the door to greater compassion for yourself and for others. When you notice the ways the false self has influenced your actions, it becomes easier to forgive yourself for past mistakes or moments of inauthenticity. You understand that these patterns were protective mechanisms, formed during times when you didn't know any better. Similarly, as you see your own struggles with clarity, you'll find it easier to empathize with others who may also be operating from their false selves. This compassionate understanding deepens your relationships and fosters a sense of connection and shared humanity. The practice of observing your thoughts and emotions is not just a tool for personal transformation. It's also a pathway to freedom. Each moment of awareness helps you step out of the automatic patterns that keep you stuck and into the expansive possibilities of the present. As you build this habit, you'll find it easier to navigate challenges, make decisions, and pursue goals that truly matter to you. Life becomes less about striving to meet external expectations and more about expressing your authentic self. This freedom to be yourself, unburdened by the constraints of the false self, is where genuine joy, peace, and fulfillment reside. With patience and practice, this new way of being can become your natural state, a steady foundation for living with intention and purpose. As you deepen your connection to the observer within, you'll notice a growing sense of alignment with your true self. The layers of the false self, those protective masks and roles, begin to fall away, revealing the authentic core that has always been there. This authenticity isn't about perfection or a fixed identity. It's about living in a way that feels true to your values and aligned with your inner wisdom. The false self may still try to reassert itself in moments of doubt or fear, but your awareness gives you the power to recognize it and respond from a place of clarity and strength. Living authentically doesn't mean abandoning all structure or responsibility. It means making choices that resonate with who you truly are, rather than following outdated scripts or external expectations. You might find yourself reevaluating relationships, career paths, or habits that no longer feel fulfilling. These changes don't have to be dramatic or immediate. Often, they begin with small, conscious steps: speaking your truth in a conversation, setting boundaries, or pursuing a long-held dream. Each of these actions reinforces your connection to your true self, creating a ripple effect that transforms your life from the inside out. The journey to authenticity and freedom is ongoing, but it's also deeply rewarding. Each step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to a life that feels rich with meaning and purpose. By embracing the observer within and learning to navigate the chatter of the false self, you open yourself to a deeper connection with the present moment and the people around you. This journey is not about reaching a final destination, but about cultivating a way of being that allows you to thrive, grow, and experience the fullness of life. The more you practice, the more you'll discover that freedom, peace, and authenticity are not distant goals. They are available to you here and now, in every breath and every choice you make.